final minute. Bennett for the pocket. Launches to the end zone. Touchdown. A.D. Mitchell.
Chase McGrath for the win for the Volunteers. From 40. On the way, a knuckleball. He got it.
Sunday morning is upon us. It is September 17th on this Sunday morning, a little bit before church, which is a little bit of a change for me, but I have everything done. I'm very confident based on the fact that I was able to actually watch a lot more of the games as they were happening. So this is more of an instant reaction show. And the education in the notebook paper, I have plenty of time to do because I'm doing this earlier. Now, I'm going to think about including a live stream in my YouTube. So if you guys are on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like it, because it helps the algorithm, and comment down below, because remember, guys, opinion plus discussion equals community. And I'm talking about this on TikTok at the end of the day. A lot of people that create content, they have an opinion, but not a whole lot of people want to have a discussion with the people watching their videos. And a lot of those people are successful, but if there is no discussion, there is no community. And I love Josh Pate. He gives great information out, but I would not consider what Josh Pate does on YouTube a community. I would like a community. I would like to communicate with everybody and be able to tell you guys that I'm right and you were wrong, and vice versa. I'm wrong and you are right. I like to give credit where credit is due. And sometimes that credit is not due to me. Sometimes it is due to me. So if you guys like, if you guys comment, if you guys subscribe, that's exactly what you're getting, a community with opinion plus discussion. Your opinion, my opinion, your discussion with me. That's what it's all about. All right, we're going to recap these games right here. Noon slate. Florida State struggles. Missouri walks it off. LSU and Penn State dominate. All right, so talking about this, a noon slate, we're going to start with this Florida State versus Boston College game. Florida State going on the road to Boston College definitely struggled. A big impression that Thomas Castellanos made on this game for sure. He was really, really good, ran for 95 yards, threw for 305 yards. I'm a little bit concerned about that Florida State defense. I am very concerned about that secondary. Fentrell Cypress plays amazing, but outside of Fentrell Cypress, I don't necessarily know if they have the safeties. I don't necessarily know if they have the corners. I came away a lot more concerned about Florida State than I thought I'd be, and they looked more like the team that I thought they were going to be in the preseason. Really, really good, but a little bit vulnerable in some spots. If you take a look at what they did on offense, Jordan Travis got banged up right before the half, and he didn't play as well in the second half, but he still played well enough to get them the win. The biggest takeaway I have is Florida State could not run the ball against Boston College. 3.8 yards per carry. Rodney Hill had 5 carries for 42 yards, so he did pretty good, but Trey Benson couldn't run the ball. Lawrence Toafili couldn't run the ball at all. And they did a bunch of different things to try to get their playmakers the ball, but at the end of the day, the quiet name, the guy with the 0 catches, Keon Coleman. Man, my take about Keon Coleman looks a lot worse right now. The fact that I thought he was going to win the Biletnikoff. It is very hard to win the Biletnikoff with a game where you had 0 receptions. This is going to be a struggle for sure. All right. Missouri walks it off. This was a big-time game by Brady Cook. This was a big-time game by the Missouri Tigers. If you take a look at what Brady Cook did in this game, he threw for 356 yards against a susceptible back 4 or 5 for Kansas State. Brady Cook had a 64 QBR, and they really needed every piece of that because they could not run the ball whatsoever. I mean, Cody Schrader went 10 for 58, which isn't bad. Nathaniel Pete went 7 for 18. They didn't try to establish the run as much as I thought they would, but they definitely struggled to run the ball here. Luther Burden also went off 7 receptions for $114. And shout out to Mookie Cooper for 4 receptions, 79 yards, the Ohio State transfer right there. Theo Weiss also kind of shined in this game a little bit too. And overall, this headline goes to Harrison Mevis. Harrison Mevis with the big time kick at the end there. LSU, by the way, looked really good against Mississippi State. I was very impressed with what they were able to do. Just dominant from the start. And Malik Neighbors, his halftime stat line of 10 receptions for $188 was insane. Penn State does dominate, but they specifically dominated on defense. Their offense did not look good. I want to see more out of Penn State in the future. All right, afternoon games, and I'm going to try to go by this a lot quicker than I just was. So, afternoon games, Georgia survived. They surged in the second half, down 14-3 at halftime, and they end up scoring the final 21 points of the game. And speaking of scoring final points of the game, Ohio State ended up scoring the final 49 points of their game against Western Kentucky. Now, to all my Ohio State fans out there, I just want to say this one thing. Ohio State had a lot of success on offense, but part of that success on offense might have something to do with the fact that Western Kentucky is a very aggressive defense, trying to cause turnovers, trying to cause havoc. And I'm not saying this wasn't a step in the right direction, because honestly, I feel like Ohio State just needed some confidence. I just think that we have to kind of hold off on saying that, oh, the offense is fixed, they're back to normal, because they exploded against Western Kentucky. A very aggressive defense like that, who loves to blitz a lot, who loves to go sell out for turnovers. That's what you're going to get. But they took care of the ball despite that. They had that one strip sack, but other than that, they did pretty well. Now, Georgia's comeback, on the other hand, I don't want to overreact. It was a sloppy game. They played bad in the first half. I don't want to overreact to Georgia's problems. And certainly, I'm going to give Georgia the benefit of the doubt. Back-to-back national champions. Where I'm not going to give the benefit of the doubt to is Alabama. They already lost to Texas last week. And then they come off that and they look worse. Why do they look worse off of that loss? Why does a Nick Saban team not learn from that loss and become better? I'll give you a hint. It's because he hired the wrong guy at offensive coordinator. And what is he doing? It's Brandon Streeter-esque. All that Tommy Rees was doing was trying to deflect and say Jalen Milroe was the problem, not me. No, I'm not the problem. Jalen is. Yeah, he's trying to be the approval to the media and Nick Saban there. So he goes with Tyler Buchner. He looks horrible. He goes with Ty Simpson. He does okay, I guess. But the bottom line is this. If you can get Jalen Milroe to be a game manager, and he did not lose you the game against Texas, if you get him to be a game manager as a passer and you're able to get that dynamic run, why is Jalen Milroe not your quarterback? This makes no sense. The added threat of the quarterback run game needs to be there for Alabama. It's absolutely absurd. All right, primetime games here. Florida upsets Tennessee in the Swamp. So Tennessee going another couple of years without winning in the Swamp. It's been since, 2003? I don't even know. Like, I was very little at that point. I was still probably in close to, I don't know if I was in diapers, but I was close to in diapers last time Tennessee won in the Swamp. And yeah, this game was just all about Joe Milton not being able to take advantage. Joe Milton and the receivers not being what they had last year with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman. And what did Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman do? It opened up Brew McCoy, who had a moment or two, and Ramel Keaton, who had a moment or two. But the bottom line is this. For those of you Tennessee fans that thought Squirrel White would be just another Jalen Hyatt, you are clearly mistaken. You don't lose to Florida only putting up 16 points. Oh, the refs were bad. Yeah, they were bad. It shouldn't come down to the refs in that situation. Your defense stood up Florida in the second half. They give you every opportunity to come back and make this a game. And what happened? Joe Milton sold. Joe Milton's not the guy. And if I am going to predict later in the season, Nico Iamaleava is going to take the reins. I don't know how late. It might just be like Georgia game back in November or whatever. It might be the Alabama game, before the Alabama game. I don't know, but I am going to predict before the regular season is over, Nico Iamaleava is going to be the starter at Tennessee. South Alabama, I'm just going to real quick, I put this in here to pat myself on the back. For the record, afternoon games, just to talk about this for a second, before I pat myself on the back, way off about Minnesota. I picked Minnesota to beat North Carolina. That clearly did not happen. However, South Alabama dominates Oklahoma State. I told you guys I thought they were the better team. I thought they would win. I thought Oklahoma State would put up more of a fight than that, but 33-7. Wow, a 7.5-point underdog in South Alabama. That was one of the few walk that lines that we got. We'll talk about how bad I did this week. And Syracuse holds off Purdue. I should have placed on this game because I had a great read on this. Syracuse's offense, though they didn't play amazing in this game, they have been pretty good through the first couple of games, and this was going to be a road test at night in Ross-Ade Stadium. And there were some weird things that happened, but Syracuse able to put the nail in the coffin with a late touchdown and hold off Purdue as Hudson Card played pretty solid in this game. I mean, Hudson Card has just been solid for Purdue's offense. The issue is not their offense. It's been their defense. That's what happened against Fresno State. But Purdue dropping to 1-2, and Syracuse, more on them in a little bit. Texas survives Wyoming. I do want to say, with this being the game after going on the road and beating Alabama and getting maybe a little bit full of yourself and then playing a Wyoming team that's really good, beat Texas Tech in week 1, almost. I mean, not almost, but if they would have pulled off this upset, would be 3-0 in everybody's top 25. This Wyoming team is dangerous and good. And by the way, they played with their backup quarterback. That's the only thing that you could criticize Texas for here. But considering that everybody struggled, I think Wyoming is just as good, if not better, than teams like Boston College that Florida State struggled with, or South Carolina. Like, they might be just as good as South Carolina. We're just going to have to see on that. But Wyoming, to me, is a really good team. Shout out to the Mountain West. And speaking of the Mountain West, we're going to talk about a couple Mountain West games here. Colorado and Colorado State. What a thriller in double overtime. A little bit on my soapbox. Henry Blackman's dirty hit should have led to an ejection. And LeBron James actually tweeted about this too. He's like, I don't get how targeting leads to an ejection, but what I just saw happen to Travis Hunter was not. Like, and I agree, that was just outrageous. It was ridiculous. Later on in the game, you heard that Travis Hunter ended up going to the hospital. Like, yeah, Blackman should have been ejected. But then in overtime, you eject Mohamed Kamara, the pass rusher that absolutely got in the backfield the entire game against the run, the entire game against the pass. Did not matter. Mohamed Kamara, number 6, was in the backfield all day long. He was out, and then that pass rush was non-existent for the rest of the game. It was a little bit of the game that happened in overtime, but it was non-existent for that end of possession, or that last of that possession in the last possession of the game for Colorado, in which they scored the touchdown and 2-point conversion. If he's on the field, does this game go differently? I don't know. Regardless, though, Travis Hunter's on the field. Is this game as close? I don't know. And that's the bottom line. Henry Blackman should have been ejected, and he didn't. It was dirty, and I'm hoping that the Mountain West comes out and suspends him. They probably won't, though. Colorado State has MTSU coming up, by the way, so we're going to have to see Kamara sit in that game. Colorado, not impressive whatsoever. Speaking of not impressive, Kansas, what are we doing? Struggling against Nevada. Brendan Lewis, the former Colorado quarterback, and then they also had Sean Dollars there running the football at Nevada. So Nevada is a little bit better than a lot of people will give them credit for, I will say. And this kind of proves it to me. But Kansas, what are you doing? Struggling to this team. You never trailed in the game. The game really was in danger, though. Like, you were tied on multiple occasions. You were tied at halftime and you beat them by 7. You were tied at 24 in the fourth quarter. This was a horrible game for Kansas. And I'm hoping it's just a one-off. And I'm hoping it's just the weirdness of having to go play after dark at Nevada. But my gosh, this was tough. Fresno State shutting out Arizona State. Shout out to Mikey Keene and Jeff Tedford in that squad, because this Fresno State team looks really good. All right, we're going to present some Walk That Line here to see how I did this week. Horrible. 0-1 with Army UTSA. Completely misread that. I mean, all the trends told me that was going to happen, but clearly this was all about bucking trends. Florida State, it looked like they were about to hit it, and then they didn't score like the last quarter and a half. So good on Florida State, I guess, for struggling. I never really thought I was going to get the spread after the game started. Like, I saw how the game was playing out after one quarter. I'm like, yeah, they're not going to cover. But that over might hit. And no, it didn't. And so Florida State, you're on my absolute you're in the doghouse with me. That's all I got to say. So 0-3 start. We're 15-17 at this point. Like, what are we doing, man? Then we get Wisconsin to make it 16-17. Okay, but Wake Forest sleepwalks through the entire first half. If they play like they did in the second half the entire game, this was a great take. Minnesota was an awful take. So count up the record now. It's 16-19. Yeah, after all the crap I talked all week, I'm going to have to wear this week, because this week was pathetic for me. We make up for it a little bit with the Washington pick, 17-17 if we include that win, or 17-19 if we include that win, but 17-21 after that. But don't worry, the late night was really good for me last week. Can it be really good for me this week? Well, this was really good for me. So 17-21, this gets us up to 20-21. We get South Alabama, boom. Ole Miss, boom, but barely, I guess. Like it had 41 points, and I was like, oh man, this is going to suck. But then as Lane Kiffin teams go, I was like right here watching a 41-21 game, like, ooh, let's go, Ole Miss, yeah. And they score a touchdown, a long touchdown run with the backups in. Spencer Sanders makes an appearance. In New Mexico State, I was on the right side of this one. I thought New Mexico State was a better team. New Mexico might just be the worst team after seeing Colorado State and Nevada last night. They might be the worst team in the Mountain West here. So we make up for it a little bit. And what is that record? So we go 15-14 to 15-18 or 15-17. And we go up to 19, 16-19 right here, 17-21, 20-21. Oh, brother. Kansas, you let me down. Double let me down. But Shedeur Sanders did not. So we're 21-23 after this, of course, because Kansas really let me down, and Shedeur Sanders ended up getting over by 6.5 yards. So good on him. Oh, I forgot about this. I forgot to change the logos. I should have put the other one in here, but yeah, neither of these hit, by the way. So if you're paying attention to that right here, we were just talking about how I was 21-23 here. We're 21-25 on the year, which isn't horrible, right? But we need to make up for it. And the next 2 weeks need to be above 500 without a shadow of a doubt. So here's what I'm going to tell you guys with Walk That Line before we get to the top 25. We're going to go back to the full screen here just so I can make this guarantee to you. I promise you the research that I have been doing is not as much as I knew it would be later in the season. And I usually wait about 4 or 5 weeks to get straight into research. Part of the reason why I wanted to knock this video out is because I need to do better at Walk That Line. It is unfair for me to try to tell you guys, this is what I like, this is what I want you guys to, or this is what I'm going to play, and I think you guys should play with me. It's unfair for me to do that and then be such a failure on a week like this week. Yeah, if you would have rode with me last week, you would have had a pretty solid week, but this week, not so much. This was a dreadful week, and we can never have this happen again. So my research is going to be a lot better. My notes is going to be a lot better, and everything about each game is going to be more important. And certainly I'm going to be looking more at different matchups. Now, trends got broken here. A lot of people lost money to Vegas today. I'm not going to make any excuses, though. I need to be better than that, and we will be better than that going forward. All right, top 25 time. On that note, you ready? We're going to rapid fire this. All right, I considered to put Clemson and Kansas. I dropped them out of the rankings because of how bad they looked. It's basically a loss to me. I still think they're a good team. They're going to have to make up for it, but Kansas, I dropped out. UCF right there, UCLA right there. BYU looked really good against Arkansas. Just a shout out to them and the SEC, by the way, for Missouri being the only team to get a big out-of-conference win. And then Fresno State looking real solid right now. I know they struggled against Eastern Washington, but Eastern Washington is usually a pretty good FCS squad. But anyway, top 25. I kept Utah at 25. I dropped Kansas State to 24. Still think they're a really good team that ran into a underrated team and an underrated team in Missouri. Number 23, I dropped Colorado. They did not impress me whatsoever, and I think they're probably going to get smoked against Oregon next week. Just the truth. Number 22, Syracuse. I really liked how they looked last week, and I'm going to take them after what they did this week as well. Dominated Western Michigan, dominated Purdue. They're a really solid team. Number 21, there is Missouri. Their defense came up big when they needed to. Brady Cook looked amazing. If they can run the ball better, this team can be a contender for second in the East. I told you guys that. Tennessee looks vulnerable. Florida has looked vulnerable. South Carolina doesn't look like world beaters right now. Missouri is maybe the second best team in the East. I'm ranking them as the second best team in the East, and I said it in the preseason. Nobody listened to me. Number 20, Washington State. Hey, this team, really good. Put up 64 against Northern Colorado. That's all you can do is blow out a bad team. 19, Miami of Florida. blew out Bethune-Cookman. Could have been a lot worse than it was. 18, Oklahoma. How about Oklahoma? 66 points again against Tulsa and Kevin Wilson's team. Usually Tulsa has a pretty solid defense. They were on the road at Tulsa, so you could have sleptwalked through that game like some other teams did, like Kansas did, like Colorado did. But they didn't. They ran right through them. I know it's not as far of a trip as that road trip to Nevada, but it doesn't matter. Like, you shouldn't struggle against Nevada on the road or at home. Number 17, Iowa. They looked dominant against Western Michigan, really pulled away. That offense looked a whole lot better in that second half. Number 16, Ole Miss. Ole Miss running up the score against Georgia Tech. I do have some concerns about them, but I do think they're pretty competitive. Number 15, North Carolina. I was wrong about North Carolina. They looked really good. Their defense looking pretty solid. I still have questions about that secondary, mind you, but pretty solid, good enough to be competitive in the ACC. Right above them, their arch rival Duke, number 14. Riley Leonard looks great. They dominate Northwestern. That's what they're supposed to do. Number 13, we have Alabama. They look terrible against USF. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt way more than I should, because right now they don't look like a top 20 team. Right now, they probably look like an unranked team, but I'm giving Nick Saban the benefit of the doubt. Number 12, LSU. They looked amazing, and I told you guys just a week or two ago, because I've been saying it for the last 2 weeks, just because they struggled against Florida State, just because that game got away from them and they ended up losing by 21, does not mean they're a bad team, and does not mean they're 21 points worse than Florida State. They just aren't, right? And they showed it yesterday, dominating a pretty solid Mississippi State team, or at least a decent Mississippi State team. Number 11, USC. Not number 1, Rico. Anyway, USC's defense is definitely a concern. If you look at all the metrics when it comes to yards per play, it doesn't have to do with the fact that, Caleb Williams just scores too fast. That's a dumb argument. This defense looks bad. Watch them on film. They don't know what they're doing. Watch the all-22s if you can get a hold of them. They don't know what they're doing. We're going to walk into the top 10. Oregon State, dominant against San Diego State. Mailed that one in because San Diego State's an annoying team to play. Number 9, Notre Dame. They struggled for quite a while against Central Michigan. Pulled it out. Look ahead spot there to Ohio State. Number 8, you have Oregon. The Oregon Ducks, explosive on offense right now. We'll see how they look against Colorado next week. Number 7, Penn State. They get a road test in conference play against a decent Illinois team, and they dominate them from the jump. A little bit concerned about that offense. That red zone offense definitely did look a little bit putrid, not going to lie, specifically in the first half. But they ended up pulling it out, right? The 2 touchdowns assaulted away in the second half. But this offense did not look amazing by any stretch of the imagination. Number 6, Ohio State. They look like world beaters on offense. But again, with the aggressive nature of Western Kentucky's offense, or defense rather, the way that they try to force turnovers, get sacks, I don't know if this means that Ohio State has turned that corner, or if they just benefit off that. When I get the all-22 of that, I will be so happy to let you guys know what I think of that offensive game plan. They definitely ran the ball down their throats too. That was nice to see. Number 5, Florida State. I dropped them 1 spot, flipped them with Washington because of how good Washington looked, but because of how vulnerable they looked. Number 4, Washington shutting out Michigan State at Michigan State is insane. I mean, Nathan Carter, this offense, Noah Kim, could not get anything going. And then Michael Penix Jr. just did Michael Penix stuff. Like, Michael Penix Jr. right now is my front runner for the Heisman. Number 2 is Caleb Williams. Those two are definitely going to go back and forth. They're both really good. I mean, that's the bottom line. Number 3, Texas. Not too much to be concerned about. I thought they ran into a pretty good Wyoming team. Number 2, Michigan. They kind of coasted, looked pretty bad in the first half, but 3 turnovers, uncharacteristic of Michigan. I don't think that's going to be something that you see out of Michigan every week. And then number 1, Georgia. I'm keeping Georgia there until they lose. Like, I'm not going to move Georgia no matter what until they lose a football game. Even if they're not the best team in the country, I'm just going to let them prove to me that they're not the best team in the country, because there had been times in the past, everybody talked about Kent State last year and Missouri, where you can say this team's not that good. Well, guess what? They're still Georgia. They're still the 2-time defending champs, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. That wraps up this recap, and I give you my top 25 at the end of it. Make sure you check out my TikTok. I've been really active over there. Bash the CFB show on TikTok. Again, I'm going to say, Opinion plus discussion equals community. I'm trying to build a community here, so make sure you comment down below. That is priority number one. Priority number two, make sure you like this video if you do like it, because that helps my channel grow. And if you want to keep coming back, just subscribe. We are right there, right about to hit 100. That's the first milestone. Next milestone will be 500. Next one after that is 1,000. Let's try to make this grow. If you guys think I'm doing good work, I would really appreciate it if you guys help me out. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys for sticking with me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time.